The gold watch, the brass ring, retirement. You know, winning. It's a simple topic, one that everyone should be interested in, and one that everyone should applaud. Ask a retiree if they regret getting out. Odds are 100 to 1 they will just laugh in your face. Easy days of putzing around the house, playing golf, and waking up whenever you feel like it. No calls, no emergencies, no trauma, no adrenaline, just boring day in and day out. I guess it's a little more complicated than that. It's time to start telling our own stories. I'm Steve Kellums, and welcome to Blue Canary. With a decentralized law enforcement system in the United States, it is easy to guess that the retirement requirements and compensation differ across the country. Every state is different, and depending on the type of agency you're serving in, the retirement package for one officer in the county could be different from another officer in the city. Add in state police and federal law enforcement, and retire benefits quickly become difficult to navigate. So, we're not going to spend a lot of time on the various bits and bobs about retirement. Some of you can retire at 50 if you have 20 years of service. Some can't retire until 60. Some must retire at 60. Some retirements max out at 30 years, and no matter how long you stay, you can't earn any more money. Other retirements base their monthly pay on the highest pay grade you held at your agency. Some base it on the lowest. Confusing, to say the least. Instead of talking about those kinds of details, this season we are going to talk about what it means to be retired, how it affects the health, both physical and mental, of the officer, and what to do after retirement. The overall feeling is usually a positive one, but without proper planning, retirement can turn into a nightmare. And for you younger officers listening out there, thinking that retirement is 2 decades in the future and you don't need to worry about it yet, wake up. It will be here before you know it. First, let's talk about when to retire. As I've already pointed out, the specific requirements necessary to retire will be different depending upon where you work. But as a general rule of thumb, you are likely going to have to be 50 years old with 20 years of service to be able to draw from your retirement. That doesn't mean you can't separate from your agency while being eligible for retirement, but not eligible to draw monies from your retirement. This is generally referred to as vested retirement. In other words, the officer is vested in their retirement, but they're too young to draw from the retirement fund. This is not uncommon. My police agency was part of a state pension fund, and to retire, I had to have 20 years of service. Once I hit my 20 years, I was vested in the retirement plan. To separate from the agency and start getting paid once a month, I had to be 52 years of age. I hired on the job when I was just shy of 23 years old, and after 27 and a half years of work in the job, I decided it was time to retire. That put me a little over 50 years old when I called it quits. I was vested in my retirement, but I couldn't draw any retirement benefits for another year and a half. To make that work, you better have a solid plan in place. Far too many officers go about their workdays without a clue as to what they're going to do when it all ends. I did that. You've done that. But it's not smart. I don't care if it's your first day on the job. Understand your retirement rules and start making a plan. You cannot stop Father Time. No matter what you do, one day you will look around and realize it's time to go. So you need to be prepared. Decisions to retire are rarely based on money. Decisions to stay are almost always based on money. Everyone will decide to leave for their own reasons. But in my experience, the real motivator will be a thing. What do I mean by a thing? Something will push you over the edge. A call will be the straw that broke the camel's back. A new supervisor that you can't stand. A new policy that's bullshit. More political crap that you just aren't going to take anymore. Maybe you can't physically do it anymore. Maybe your family wants you out. Maybe you're burned out and you just can't show up. It's usually one thing that pushes you over the edge, and it's always very personal. For me, it was health reasons. I had gone to my annual eye exam, and after an unusually lengthy exam, the doctor informed me that I had an eye disease that looked like macular degeneration, but was generally connected to high caffeine usage and high stress. Without drastically changing my lifestyle, I would likely lose my eyesight in one or possibly both of my eyes. That was a life-changing moment. On my way back to the office after the appointment, I called my wife. Later that afternoon, I informed my chief I was going to retire in a year. Setting that date wasn't difficult at all. I had started planning, albeit not soon enough for retirement, so I knew exactly what I needed to do and how I was going to do it. I've known far too many officers who've wanted to retire, but couldn't because they couldn't afford it. Or they had made some bad life decisions and were stuck working for another decade. I've even known officers who have retired and had to come back to the job because retirement didn't cover their basic living expenses. If you're listening right now and haven't thought about retirement, do this one thing. Pick a date. Pick a retirement date. Look into the future, figure out what the requirements for retirement at your agency are, and then pick a date. You can always change it. Nobody is going to put a gun to your head and make you leave on that date, but by picking a date, it will help you start planning everything else. Once you pick that date, you can start your financial planning. You can start talking to a financial planner to make sure that you have your expenses in order and that you're properly saving and putting away money for your retirement. And while pensions are amazing, it's likely that you'll need more than what that pension offers. So things like Roth IRAs, 457Bs, and other money-making options should be in the discussion. Oh, and while I'm thinking about it, for all you rookies listening in, don't buy that $80,000 pickup truck on your first day of FTO.
The Legal Liability Risk Management Institute is the nation's largest provider of liability and risk management services in the United States. Our goal is to help reduce liability, reduce lawsuits, and enhance officer performance. Regardless of the size of your agency, we have a risk management solution. You may contact us at www.llrmi.com or call 317-386-8325.
Being unable to retire financially is why many people stay in the job far longer than they should. At police departments, the young officers never talk about retirement. Those conversations are always left to day shifters that have 15 plus years on the job. They will constantly be talking about contract negotiations and retirement packages. They will be interested in any changes to the pension and will encourage the younger officers to vote certain ways based on retirement. Younger officers never talk about retirement, and you might think that's because retirement is so far in their future they can't focus on it. And to a point, that is correct. But there's another phenomenon that I find unusual in law enforcement. Only 1/3 of cops reach retirement. That's right, 2/3 of police officers on the street today will leave law enforcement before they become vested in retirement. Why? Why do they leave? Well, there are several factors at play, and it's hard to put your finger on it. Things like low compensation while having to live in areas that they can't afford, limited career opportunities, and lack of advancement. Many officers today don't want to spend a 20-plus year working patrol, and patrol accounts for well over half of all law enforcement positions. Job satisfaction and poor leadership. I'd say this one is probably at the top of the list. I have talked to far too many officers who said they never felt appreciated and their bosses never looked out for them until they left policing and went into another career field. In law enforcement, we tend to think that bad leadership is the norm. It's not. And finally, fatigue. It's a very tough job, and the mental and emotional toll sets in quickly. Every day gets tougher and tougher, and without positive support from the organization and the community, it's hard to stick around. Add to that the constant noise from the anti-police movement calling for your jobs and even your life makes it a very difficult profession to stay in for very long. Good thing we get to retire young in policing. The average retirement age in the U.S. is 62. The age at which you can draw Social Security benefits is 67. So generally, people look at their mid-60s as retirement age. The average retirement age for police officers in the U.S. is 57, a full 5 years earlier than their civilian counterparts. When people learn that cops tend to retire in their mid-50s, you get a lot of the same responses. Must be nice. Wish my job let me retire when I was young enough to enjoy it. You got it easy. Of course, none of those statements are very accurate. Being able to retire early is a benefit to law enforcement officers, but it's also a benefit to the organization and the community. Policing is a young person's game. The physical, mental, and emotional demands are great, and after working a 20-plus year career of terrible hours, bad food, and high stress, doesn't bode well for the 50-year-old officer getting into a foot pursuit with an 18-year-old suspect who turns and attacks them. Fighting for your life for 2 minutes is incredibly hard and takes a lot out of you. At 50, you might not still have it in you. As for the mental and emotional demands, Some will say that the younger officers don't know how to deal with it, and there's a point to that. But years and years of waves crashing into a beach will erode the sand. The same thing happens to cops. Years and years of working in a hostile and toxic environment, seeing the worst that humanity has to offer, will erode their health. Physically, mentally, and spiritually. Cops need to be able to successfully complete the profession while they can still have time to enjoy the safe society they worked so hard to preserve. Retirees may look young, but they have an old soul. Ask a retired cop if they enjoy retirement, and you'll hear a loud and universal, hell yes. But police retirement isn't necessarily all sunshine and rainbows. If you haven't properly prepared yourself for retirement, you can find yourself in a lot of trouble with no one to help. First, you have to financially prepare yourself for retirement. The police pension is a great thing, but depending on where you live and how the pension is run, it may not, hell, it won't meet all of your retirement needs. You will have to have something to supplement that pension. That might mean a 401k or a Roth IRA or a 457b or maybe just day trading on the stock market. I'm not a financial planner, so don't take any advice from me. But you'd better have some solid financial plans for your future outside of your department or state or federal pension. One of the next challenges you'll have to face is forming new habits. After all of those years of showing up to work and doing your thing, and suddenly you don't have that thing to do anymore, you might think it's not a big deal, but it is. Having habits and structure to our days is incredibly important, and when suddenly you don't have it anymore, you can struggle. Every morning I was at work, I would get coffee with some of my staff. It would typically be the detective lieutenant and the day shift lieutenant. I'd meet them at a local coffee shop and spend about 40 minutes talking about what was going on, how the shifts or divisions were running, who was having problems, and I would keep them informed about what was going on with the command staff. Not only was it a very valuable communication time, but it was also a great way to stay in touch with the officers. When I retired, I found that I really missed those meetings. I know it sounds weird, but they'd become such a part of my life that without them, I felt lost. I would even call the guys up once a week or so for a couple of months after I left to try and recreate the coffee meetings. It didn't work. I had to find new habits, new structure. That's really important. A way to fill those gaps in your life from the missing structure and habits is with hobbies. I highly recommend hobbies to help fill your body and mind's demand for structure. I will talk more about hobbies in another episode, but find yourself something you enjoy, something that you can do to pass the time and keep you sharp, both physically and mentally. Remember, that couch is a killer, and don't let it keep calling your name. Finally, you need to come to terms with your new identity. It's very common in our profession for officers to immerse themselves within the cop culture. To many, being a cop is who they are, and not just what they do. Don't get me wrong. I believe that being a cop is a calling, that it takes a special person to put on that uniform every day and do those things that keep our community and your family safe. But when the sun is set on that career and it's time to move on, you need to be able to put that identity away. Hang it in the closet with the old uniforms, or better yet, put it in a frame and display it proudly. But know it's in your past and that the future can bring more things and hopefully better things. We have to take care of ourselves in retirement. We have to heal from the mental and emotional and physical wounds of a very difficult career. We've earned that. We deserve that. And that's the story we have to tell. Thank you for joining. As always, I'm curious what questions you're getting asked. What isn't the news covering? What story needs to be told? Connect with me at bluecanarypodcast@gmail.com.